We put billions every bloody year into the Australian economy, but we end up with a hospital with no doctors. How can that be?
And what happens to a town like Dingo if coal mines start shutting down?
Well, it'll shut down.
When you're talking about a community, this is people's livelihoods and we're family.
So if tomorrow the mine turns off, what's your skill you're going to fall back on?
I'm on a road trip through the guts of central Queensland. This is cattle, coal and cane country.
Last federal election, a lot of people up here voted for minor parties, which helped the coalition defeat Labor. It was a shock to many in the south. So over the next week, I want to spend time talking to lots of different people. I want to know what they really care about. Are they still annoyed at the major parties? And what might change their vote next time round? About 800 people live in Taroom, which is about 5 hours northwest of Brisbane. The area is known for cattle production, but there's also cropping and timber industries that feed the local economy. It's also the only stop on this trip where I actually know a few people to call in on.
G'day Andrea, how's it going?
Afternoon,
You good?
how you going?
How you been keeping?
Keeping busy, thank you.
Always busy here it seems.
Yes.
I had to wait my turn before.
Yeah.
Andrea was born and raised here and is an enthusiastic advocate for the community.
It's what you usually call the old school friendly. People help each other out, support local.
One of the biggest problems in Taroom at the moment is finding good people to fill jobs.
We have some great jobs going. Like pretty much you throw a rock anywhere, any business is looking for someone for employment to come work here. So we're having a really big problem getting people to work here.
In the media recently, we've all been talking a lot about net zero and that sort of thing. I mean, are those conversations people out here care about?
They probably are, but they haven't been talking to us about it in the butcher shop.
When it comes to federal politics, she says some people have switched off.
So I think they feel that they're forgetting about the country people and more just worrying about what the city people want, and they felt a bit unheard and left out, hence why they were going more to the minority parties where they felt that they looked after more of their issues.
If I was a politician wanting to get your vote, what would I need to do for you?
That's a good question. Probably listen to the people that actually out in the country and some of the things that they've been giving feedback, and actually not just say you're going to do it, but actually follow through.
Sounds reasonable enough. So to give me a bit of a history on politics in the area, I want to introduce you to a bloke who, in his own words, has been around a few days and is full of his own opinions.
Good to see you.
Rob Phipps is a former horse trainer, council water officer, and has only recently retired as Taroom's last locally based funeral director. And on federal politics, he doesn't take much prompting to share one of those opinions.
There are a lot of fools for a start. In the last couple of elections, said the wrong things, went the wrong way about it.
Fools as in the political leaders?
And the
fools?
political leaders, yeah. And
on both sides, you reckon?
There was, yeah, that's both sides of them.
Do you think, more broadly speaking, the national government of Australia has done enough for regional Australia?
No. You, unless you're within sight of the city lights, you're a long way from anywhere.
Taroom is in the seat of Flynn, and the Liberal National Party have held it since 2010. But when Rob was younger, a lot of people around here voted Labor.
We'd have speakers come over and speak in the main streets in the back of a truck, some very smart men. And I found they were talking to some very smart men here too, that were ringers or ring barkers or what have you. You don't get the good deep discussions now. Getting people to think ahead of what today's life is and not but great-grandfathers. Great-grandfather and grandmothers, their parents voted to Jimmy Smith because he was a leading Labor Party man of the country. The rest of them, they Joe Bear Bloggs because he was the National Party. And that was, they handed that down through the generations. They didn't give a bugger if you come with a better ideas and better things than what any other party had been for 20 years. They still voted for that one. And there's a lot of that still in the country.
I could have stayed all afternoon talking to Rob and Myra, but there was a storm coming, and we were trying to get to Gladstone by dark. The city of Gladstone is surrounded by heavy industry. Within line of sight, there's a power station, a coal port, and an aluminium smelter in the distance.
When I came home on holidays, I said, "Mum, do you know there's a power station right there?" And she's like, "Yeah, you can see it from our house." So all of this sort of, world-leading infrastructure really was just blended into the background, really normalised for me.
Jacqueline McCosker grew up here. After living away, she's moved back, now working as a climate and energy campaigner with the Australian Conservation Foundation.
Everyone wants more progressive climate action. Everyone believes in climate change. We all want to see climate solutions. But then there's a huge question mark and a very justifiable nervousness around what that means, because most of the jobs here are in heavy industry.
But as big businesses commit to big cuts to emissions, the future of Gladstone's economy is set to be transformed.
Rio Tinto is actually the biggest employer in Gladstone, and they've just announced that they will reduce their emissions 50% by 2030, and that actually means they will transition the Boyne smelter, the 2 refineries in town, so we are seeing it underway.
But where does that leave communities in the west, places like Moranbah, which supply coal to the Gladstone port?
Something I would say to a town like Moranbah is, I'm sorry if you feel like no one has been speaking to you about the solutions so far. I don't feel like there's an excuse for coal regions to feel like they might be abandoned by any level of government. I think there are a lot of solutions that can be discussed with them. Mining, for example, is not something that's going anywhere. There's a lot of mining that needs to happen for green energy and green manufacturing, and that's not changing. But there is going to be an adjustment, and there will be, some mines are probably going to close, and there is going to be a level of adaptation. But we're pretty adaptive people.
I mean, like if they're going to zero, no coal, there's no this, what's the reason the Gladstone to be, why would we exist?
Despite hosting many multi-billion-dollar resource companies, retired Gladstone labourer Robert Melvin worries there'll be nothing to show for it.
We put billions every bloody year into the Australian economy, but we end up with a hospital with no doctors. How can that be?
The major federal political parties are still not very popular up here.
Well, nobody seems to do anything. I mean, it's like banging your head against a bloody wall, mate. It feels good when you stop. You just hope to Christ, mate, you just jump at anything, eh? And that's Pauline and mate, and that other fella, mate, from Townsville. And sometimes they actually do get things done. I mean, like Pauline has a few things she got done. I mean, I reckon she's a total bloody idiot, but that's my personal opinion. But she does do things, mate, and she's doing it with the best intentions.
An hour's drive north of Gladstone, and you're in the beef capital of Australia. There's a bit more than beef in Rockhampton though. With 120,000 people in the region, it's a major service centre, not just for the mining industry, but also agriculture and health. At the Frenchville Cricket Club, third grade are just finishing a session in the nets. Captain Lachlan Smith is close to graduating as an engineer and hopes to find work in the region.
So are you worried about the future of some of the industries that engineers have traditionally worked in around here?
Railway will be, a big industry for many years to come. Like mining, will eventually close down, but we've still got plenty of time ahead of us to, get jobs for the next 30, 40, 50 years.
What do I have to do to get your vote? What's important to you?
Just be honest. Be down to earth and honest. If you can back up what you're saying that you're going to put forward to the table, you get my vote. That's generally how I, pick my numbers. There's a lot of political campaigns. I don't really want to get into it too deeply, but a lot of people bring their little piece of paper out and they say what they're going to do and whatnot, and then they don't back up on it. If you're able to, talk the talk and then walk the walk, you'll get my vote.
The old racecourse over here has been there for hundreds of years. Racecourse.
This is Durrumble country, and when it comes to national politics, Elder Uncle George James feels like things have stagnated.
I think with our politics here, we've come to a bit of a standstill. We've got to rev it up, put it in top gear. We've got to move along a little bit.
He'd like to see federal leaders do more than just fly in and fly out for Beef Week.
We can go to our local fellow and say, oh, this is this and this. But we've got to have the big ones here. We've got to have the top ones here because they fly over us.
Last election, a lot of people in the seat of Capricornia voted for Pauline Hanson's party. Uncle George is philosophical about it. He says even some of his own mob voted for One Nation.
And I know some of our people went there, like you say, frustration. Frustration maybe from other parties or maybe nobody else wanted to talk to them. But I think everybody's entitled to have their say. But like I say, you fix that at the voting boxes.
And his message to Parliament is simple.
Honesty and cooperation would be the main key for me. Yeah.
And that's been missing a bit, you reckon?
I think so, yeah.
A few hours west of Gladstone is the town of Dingo. The biggest employer is the sawmill. It cuts timber props for underground coal mines. Almost everyone living here is connected to the coal industry. Lance Olive is one of them. He's a timber cutter and his family have lived in Dingo for generations. He senses an uncertainty about the town's future.
No one sort of talks about it, they don't. Yeah.
Are you thinking, oh, I'll be right, but I don't know about my next generation?
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, I'll be right, because they're going to shut it down by when? Well, one lot's saying 2050 and someone else was saying 2030, so, you know, yeah, the next generation's going to find it tough, aren't they?
And what happens to a town like Dingo if coal mines start shutting down?
Well, it'll shut down. It'll be a ghost town, that's what'll happen. And that's what I can't understand. They're letting new coal mines open up, but they say they want to ban it.
So you want to see a plan?
Yeah, a plan put in place, yeah.
In decades gone, Lance remembers local MPs stopping in Dingo for a beer, but it feels like a long time between drinks.
There's just no touch at all with the people. They don't see them, they don't talk to them. I reckon you'll see more of them going for the likes of One Nation and United Party.
Further west is the town of Emerald. It's a major centre with over 12,000 people. It's traditionally serviced a productive agricultural region, but in recent decades, mining has become a major economic driver. The mines are one of the biggest clients at Kaya Tebbett's office supply shop, but there is uncertainty in the air here too. The government is committed to net zero, but says coal is going to have a great future.
They're just confused. There's no consistent, are we doing this? Are we not doing this? There's no, we're just not sure what to do, what our next move is.
Right now, Kaya's biggest concerns are basic health services that many in the city might take for granted.
I would like medical facilities ramped up. I want to be able to, if people are suffering from terminal illnesses, to be able to stay with their families here. I want the opportunity for people to have their babies here. I want to be able to go to our local hospital and them be able to help us, not send us off.
Last financial year, the Central Highlands region generated over $10 billion of output.
The companies that are providing all of that money are here, but they fly everyone back to these big cities, and that's all well and good, but we still need to provide for the people that are here, that are, you know, the backbone of these little towns, and the railway and the hospitals and the councils and things like that.
Anglican Minister Jen Hurcott echoes Kaya's concerns about services. And she's also noticed a darker side to a community where many work long shifts.
Just hope. They seem to lack hope in that situation. The fatigue levels are something that is just draining them out. So, yes, there would be some families that are suffering frustration, but I see a profound sadness in disconnection. Yeah.
What's lacking, she says, is a meaningful, big picture plan.
I think transition, so long-term planning, so more than one election cycle in planning, looking 20 to 30 years down the track as our town transitions, how do they maintain the community, and how do they maintain the services that are here, making sure that we continue to have a town that meets the needs of the whole region.
Jen reckons there needs to be better engagement from all levels of government.
Part of this is about engaging who we are as a town and seeing that we're more than one thing, and actually planting seeds of hope for the future based on who we are and what we can be.
This is the heart of the Bowen Basin, Australia's largest coal reserve. There are about 44 mines operating over 60,000 square kilometres. But most of the coal mined here is metallurgical coal, which is used to make steel. For now, it's unviable to produce steel without it. Over 8,000 people live in Moranbah, the biggest town in the Bowen Basin. It was purpose-built by mining companies, and for nearly 40 years, it's been home for Carol and Fritz.
Oh, look, we're predominantly mining, but we're so much more than that.
Recently, it's been hard to hear people who have never been to Moranbah call for the shutdown of an industry that has given so many a great life.
This is people's livelihoods, and we're families, we're real people. So when you want to shut down our major industry, you're talking about families. Well, we went through a boom and a crazy time there where houses were getting sold for $1 million out here.
Really?
Why would you do that? I don't know, but they bought them for $800 to $1 million as an investment, and then we're just coming out the other side now. But there was probably 3 mortgagee auctions a day.
Carolyn knows what can happen here when the market for coal changes.
This is the camp that's shut down. It used to be a thriving camp. Like, we used to go to their canteen and have dinner.
Over the past couple of days, we've met a lot of people who have refused to talk to us on the record. In places like Moranbah, people are worried that what they say could jeopardise their job or their place in the community. And from what I can gather, it's because everyone here knows that fortunes can change quickly. Take this place, for example. Hundreds of people used to live in this BHP mining accommodation. Today, it's abandoned. Is the federal government or state government involved enough at the moment talking to you about the future, or has it sort of been left to the locals?
I think it's been left to the locals.
And you think the mining companies won't leave you high and dry, that they've got plans in place for the future? You trust them for now?
Yes, at the moment, yes, that's exactly what they're doing. You know, they have end of life for their mine sites, and it might be in 40 years' time, but they're already engaging with the community and community leaders on what it is that we'd like to see happen to those mine sites once they have to close them down. This town was built because of the mine.
So if they shut it down, Moranbah's gone. Or do you think we can do something else? Because look at all these great facilities out here. I mean, it'd be a shame to bulldoze it.
I think if the mines closed down, the town would shrink. It will only be the hardcore people who stay behind, if they can. It's a hard question to predict, but I would say that Moranbah would be severely hurt by it.
Is there any modelling or discussions in those boardrooms that you sit in being discussed? Yeah. That's a hard conversation to have.
Yeah, it is. It's very hard.
For now, until the hydrogen industry ramps up and green steel becomes a reality, trains will keep rolling into Hay Point Coal Terminal, near Mackay. But when all this coal is burnt, The CO2 it releases will keep driving global warming. The urgency of the problem has driven career coal miner Grant Howard to campaign for change.
I don't want to shut the industry down, nobody does. What we want is a transition, and I want coal miners to understand that transition, be a part of that conversation.
So why didn't you quit?
Yeah, well, I thought about that. In fact, I went to work and people were saying, you know, you shouldn't be a coal miner, you're a hypocrite, you're this, you're that.
Was everyone like that? A bit pissed off at you?
No, not everyone. It's difficult to gauge. Definitely people confronted me with it, like physically.
What did that look like? In the crib room, you're getting people?
Yeah. It's difficult because you know, these guys are, for every other reason, they're great guys. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for other mine workers looking after me. And as an older mine worker, I feel compelled to look after them. The bottom line is they need the truth. They need good information. And that's all I wanted to do.
The coal mining industry has given people such a high quality of life. There's people driving around brand new Dodge Rams, and people own multiple properties on the coast or wherever. Like it's a good life. You get a good income. What comes next probably won't be like that, right? Is that the hard thing to swallow?
Indeed, it is, and it's probably a conversation that people don't like to have. And in me, sort of trying to understand, you know, that inertia and that reluctance and that rejection of this whole idea that things are changing. You know, perhaps that is part of the problem, that that in the industry, those coal miners, you know, it's not a secret. Yeah, they do earn a good living and they deserve it. They're working under 500 metres underground, 12 hours a day. It's hot, it's dusty, it's noisy, it's monotonous. You know, I don't think anyone would take that away from them. But the difficulty then becomes is they've set their lives up. They're a part of that affluence, and so what does come after that? And
what does come after that?
And that's you know, that's a good question.
Grant still works in the coal industry. He's built a life and a career around it, but he's also someone who cares deeply about the environment. The relationship between these two parts of him is complex.
I'm a coal miner, and at times, you know, I just couldn't articulate how I'd reconcile all this. And so where I eventually got to, and it took a while, was that we were all equally responsible. You know, we dig up coal and we make stuff, and everyone uses that stuff. So at the end of the day, we're all equally responsible.
The coal industry remains a big economic driver in the Mackay region. However, the area is also known as Australia's sugarcane capital. It's an industry that Marion Healy's South Sea Islander community helped to build.
So as recently as the 80s, mining wasn't really a big deal.
No. I can remember I finished high school in 1980, and you know, my brother at the time was one of the first in our families to go into the trade of industry. He was a blacksmith. Moranbah was just only opening up at that time, so yeah, it was just sugarcane. My dad worked in the sugar fields for many generations and years, so we were a sugar town. Yeah.
And how has mining changed this place?
How's it changed it? It's fathers away from their children. Mothers are now away from their children because women are being enticed to come out and work on the big trucks. A lot of my mates that I catch up with, I have to work around their shifts, you know, so the girls back in town, so we go out when they get home. You'll see a lot of our young kids are dysfunctional in their families, whether they're black or white, you know. Other people are raising their children for them because the mums and dads are working out in the mining towns.
When coal mining does eventually wind down, the cane industry will still be a place you can get a job, but the money won't be as good.
Does this town have to get ready to take a pay cut?
Yeah, oh, definitely. And I think they need to be skilled in other things. So if tomorrow the mine turns off, what's your skill you're going to fall back on? Look at these Australian South Sea.
While I had her ear, I also wanted to get Marion's take on the recent popularity of minor parties like One Nation.
I don't think they're hearing us, The little, you know, I consider myself to be a regional person, but are they really, really taking notice of me down south with our two major parties? If I can talk about the young lad that's here who is One Nation, he so happens to be Australian South Sea Islander, Stephen Andrews.
Really?
He's one of your crew?
One of my crews, yeah. He's one of our mob, yeah.
And he's running for One Nation?
Yeah, even though the values are very, you know, it's like in your face. And I'll say to Steve, I spent time with Steve last week, you know. He came and supported me at the Kanaka Proud Cup. He's a strong South Sea Island man. We know that he's jumped on board with a party that's either given him weight to have his say and so on. And I don't agree with the values that Pauline Hanson up there and promoting. But young Steve, you know, he listens. He will listen. He's working strongly to put a bill through at the moment to make them start sitting up and start challenging them.
Across all the towns and cities we visited in central Queensland, this has been a consistent message. People feel forgotten by political leaders. They want to be listened to and they want to be engaged with, genuinely.
If we're talking to someone, we got to get trust in that person.
There is uncertainty around the future of coal mining, one of the biggest employers in the region, and
no one sort of talks about it, you know. Yeah.
To many, politicians don't seem ready to have hard conversations.
I don't feel like there's an excuse for coal regions to feel like they might be abandoned.
Many places we drove through aren't what they once were. Not as many people work in agriculture like they used to. Most jobs are in the city. And even when there are jobs in the bush, there aren't the people to fill them. Is that because that even in major regional centres, people have to live with compromised basic services?
They don't fly home and get sick.
Having to leave town for treatments, that's not good enough.
Central Queenslanders are more complex than the stereotypes given to them by some southerners.
I think they think we're all cowboys.
They work hard and they love where they live.
It's better growing up in a little town than a city.
And with so much distrust and uncertainty, how they vote this election is anyone's guess.
We're just Queenslanders, mate. We're a stubborn mob, eh? Yeah.